my name is Kevin Kozak. I'm from Horse and Farm Insurance. A little bit about myself. I've been involved with horses for over 30 years. I've run boarding facilities, done some amateur showing. Right now I have a small farm with my wife and we have 3 horses. So I do everything that you guys do. I muck stalls and all of it. So I understand what you do for a living and I understand what you do for enjoyment. So most of the information we're going to use is what we call policy information. It'll be based on stuff that's in the forms from Markel and ISO, which is like the stuff that's overall used in the insurance agency. Language in the endorsements in your policies could be different. Every company has their own endorsements, their own language, their own ways they handle different things. So nothing I say here would necessarily apply directly to the coverage that you have. So we're getting back to the law here. We're talking about insurance and law. And we already talked about negligence. So the negligence is something that gets determined in court. The insurance company doesn't determine that. And I know we were batting around the equine activity statute before. Even though everybody would like to have that, and I would like to see that in the 4 states that don't have it, it still does not preclude you from getting sued. Most of the time when you get sued, the defense costs are where the money is. I have one client, they had a suit at their ranch. Little girl was injured. She was in the aisleway and a horse was there. The horse pressed her up against the wall. She ruptured her spleen. She went to the hospital. She got taken care of. Everything was fine. So when everything was all said and done, what it cost was $56,000. The hospital bill is $5,800. The rest of it were all legal bills. So just because you have an equine statute, and I understand what you're saying, it'd be nice to have it, it doesn't stop you from getting sued. And when it says, so we're talking about insurance defend and settle on your behalf. There will be provisions in your contract when you read them. It's going to tell you that the insurance company is going to determine how and when they're going to settle. You might be sitting there saying, but I didn't do anything wrong. It wasn't my fault, you know, because I have people like that who call me up and say, Kevin, you know, this happened. What should I do? I say, call the claims department. They'll handle it from there. You guys, I didn't do anything. I don't want to pay it. It's like, it's not your decision. The insurance company is going to do what's the most expedient for them, which is usually why they settle. It's less money. So we're going to talk about liability insurance policies, if they start coming up. So the first one is one that we all have, whether we have a farm or not, personal liability. Personal liability is what we have in our homeowners policies. Private horse owners is another one, farm liability, general liability, care, custody, and control, and auto. And we'll go through each one of them a little bit. If anybody has a question at any time while I'm up here yakking, feel free to ask. Now, personal liability has a lot of exclusions in it, especially when it pertains to business. Business activities on and off your premise. Now, policy definition of a business, a trade, profession, occupation engaged in full or part-time or on an occasional basis. Or, for which no insured receives more than $2,000 total compensation for 12 months before the beginning of the policy period. What was your profit last year? You did good. You made some money. So professional services. This thing looks like it's starting to roll on itself. So we're talking about personal liability and know what your limitations are on your personal liability. This is going to come into play like if you say you have a barn in your backyard like I do. I have 3 horses and I say, you know, it'd be nice to have a boarder to pick up some of the expenses. Well, as soon as you bring that boarder in, it changes it from a personal liability exposure to a commercial exposure. your personal liability will not respond to a claim now, which can put you in a position of basically having no insurance. Errors and omissions, that's insurance that I carry. Jonathan carries it. If I do something where I don't insure you properly, don't advise you correctly, I have insurance for that because you could sue me. But that's not in your personal liability, nor is care, custody, control, or workers' comp. So now if you have somebody that's, let's say, instead of giving you money for board that's in your barn, they're now working it off. They're coming every day, and they're cleaning the stalls and doing work around the farm. They're now your employee. If they get injured on your property, you have no liability insurance that's going to cover them, because they should have been covered by workers' comp. It's not a good place to be. Hopefully the person that gets injured would have their own medical coverage. They put the claim in there, and if it gets paid, everybody's happy, and everybody walks away, no harm, no foul. But if that's not the way it goes, you'll end up getting sued. You won't have insurance. You're going to go to your pocket to pay Jonathan. You're going to end up paying a retainer to get started, and you don't want to be there. So this is why it's important in how your insurance gets written. One of the things I could offer you as a private horse owner, say you want higher limits because your liability insurance at home, on your home, isn't high enough, you want to have additional coverage. You could do a private horse owner's policy. As I said, you could have it to augment your homeowners, get higher limits if that's what you would like to do. One of the things to realize with the private horse owner's liability, as soon as you do something commercially, if you're boarding, if you're giving lessons, if you're training, that will no longer apply. You would need to go and have a commercial policy put in place. Farm liability, or what I like to call a farm package, combines both. You'll have your personal liability, and you'll have a farm liability, which is commercial. They call it, yes sir?
Where would a racehorse fall into play?
You could do a private horse owners on a racehorse. That's how I do syndicates, and owners of racehorses, they could get a private horse owners policy.
That would fall under the homeowners because it's a commercial.
Well, it's not really. It's not like a money making. If you win the purse, you're making some money, but it's not viewed as a trade or something you're doing to earn money. You're spending a lot of money. You're paying a trainer, you're paying entry fees, you're paying boarding fees. So the private horse owner's policy would be a place to go if you wanted higher limits if you had a racehorse.
If something were to happen at that trainer's barn, would that cover the owner of that horse, or it might cover because that's in the trainer's possession?
Well, you could be in a position where the trainer could get sued, and they'll find out who owns the horse, and then you could get sued. And that policy would respond and give you defense costs, and would pay any judgment up to the limits of the policy. And in terms of liability, there is no deductible. I know you kept mentioning deductible with liability. Deductibles only come in with property coverages. So with your liability policy, you're not going to have a deductible. It's just going to pay from $1, and it's going to defend whether the suit is a good suit or a bad suit against you.
If you have boarders that are doing work around your farm, when does that qualify that they're an employee versus being somebody that's helping out? Now, if I have a boarder that's deciding to sweep the aisle away, and somehow they trip and poke their eye with a broom, does that?
They're not an employee.
They're not employed, but
if they slip the aisle away every day for a year, that would.
Yeah, if I take money off their board,
that changes things.
That changes.
Because that's, as Jonathan said, that's a consideration. Whether or not, money changes hands is irrelevant in terms of how that gets looked at with the state. And the way the state of New York is right now with workers' comp, I know a lot of farms don't carry it on the people that work there. It's not uncommon. But the penalties are very stiff, and it's not a good place to be if something does happen and that all comes to light that you don't have it, you should have had it. So just keep that in the back of your mind. I know a lot of people don't want to deal with it, but it is a reality. It could put you in a bad position. So where was I? We're talking about farm liability. That's going to be a combination. You're going to have, most people have a farm, they live there. So you're going to need personal liability and you're going to need commercial liability. And it'll extend to the operations, what they considered farming. Raising animals, raising crops. And it'll actually cover if you had a roadside stand selling products from the farm. But it won't cover those products if now you're going to do a commercial retail business and sell it to other, stores and markets, things of that nature. Now, farm liability comes with a lot of limitations, potential limitations. One of the first ones that we'll normally see is a complete equine exclusion. Happens a lot of companies build that back in. You'll see you have commercial general liability, and you'll have another liability, I'll say CEL, be commercial equine liability. Farm liability does not cover your workers' comp, as we just talked about. Does not cover your professional services if you're a trainer, if you're giving lessons, you're a farrier.